How are you today? The improved package has arrived. We're having it fitted in time for FP1. Have a look at the factory report.
What's going on, guys? Aarava here, and welcome back to my F1 2017 career mode, episode number 25 today for the Spanish Grand Prix. We kick things off with an unfamiliar sight, really, this season so far, with a new part fitted for our Gearbox durability upgrade. So, of course, we kind of debated last time out, at the very end of the episode 24, whether we'll be doing the internal combustion engine or the Gearbox upgrade for the reliability. Of course, you can see we've got that one engine performance upgrade on the go. That takes 2 weeks, unfortunately, because we don't have the core competencies yet to make that a 1 week upgrade. So that will be coming from Monaco, which is kind of ironic because that's not really the place that will majorly need some power. Whereas Spain, I mean, although it's very much a chassis and aero kind of circuit, you would think really they go testing here obviously in pre-season. You do also need some power because you we're going to be running higher wings to kind of cope with those corners. So it would have been nice to have come for this weekend, but unfortunately not. So we did go with the Gearbox upgrade. You saw it was 52% worn, I think that was. So using last season as an example, that was around 55 to 60% the Gearbox when we lost one gear at, I think it was the Belgian Grand Prix at Spa. So hopefully this upgrade will kind of work towards, you know, avoiding that. I've seen in some other career modes where people have done Renault, their gearboxes have been pretty poor, so that's also why I factored in kind of doing that for this car rather than the internal combustion engine. And we can probably do the internal combustion engine very soon. It's obviously only 500 points for each reliability upgrade, so I'm confident we could even maybe do that at the end of this episode potentially. But just going through the practice programs as per usual, and a very overcast Catalonia here for most of the free practice sessions, doing the tyre wear test, the fuel management test, going around the outside of our former team, the Toro Rosso. I think that's Danica Fiat there, just practicing some of our racecraft. We may need to do a bit of defending into turn one like that. Obviously last season we made the mistake of not having the engine fresh for quali and for the race, so this time I'm going to doubly make sure I don't make this mistake. We've just finished all the practice programs there, you saw, got all the points, and we are going to swap in the fresher parts. Still going with, as we have done and as I've been talking about for the last 3 episodes now, this kind of fluid movement of column 1 to column 2. At some point, I think pretty much at the end of this episode, maybe we're going to get to that point where we're getting to obviously the 5th episode, the 5th round in the season. So obviously with 4 engines available, 4 times 5, 20, we're going to get to that stage where things maybe get a little bit trickier in terms of eking out the power units, or having to maybe dip into finally column 3 perhaps. I don't know, but I think at this point, I think, in my opinion at least, I think we're doing a pretty decent job on the engine management. I feel like we're doing better than we did at Toro Rosso at least already, but that may also just be because obviously, as I mentioned, we haven't made that mistake now here at Catalonia with not putting in a fresh engine before qualifying. And speaking about qualifying, we're going into Q1 straight away. Obviously Q1 I was hoping was going to be a formality, and it did end up being just a formality of just doing the lap, coming across the line, and myself and Nico both get into Q2 pretty damn comfortably there actually, P6 and P8, so pretty promising actually. The car was feeling very, very hooked up and very, very decent, actually a lot better than the Toro Rosso ever did in qualifying, so I'm actually feeling very, very confident for this session. So into Q2, I didn't feel like it was going to be too much of a worry and doubt of getting to Q3, but you never know. The Renault isn't a comfortable Q3 car. It definitely is going to have to be a season of basically every single time I go into Q2, I do have to push as hard as I can to actually make it into Q3 and make sure I'm comfortably into Q3. You saw a little lock up there into the last sector, but in the end it didn't matter too much. And again, myself and Nico in the same exact positions, P6 and P8, bit of deja vu there. So both myself and Nico very, very consistent as well in this qualifying session. So this episode is really kicked off with the best possible way. But as we go into our Q3 lap, that's where the luck really ends, because into turn 1 you can see the back end will snap out a little bit. It's because we've actually lost a gear now.
You've lost access to one of the gears. We've lost one of the gears due to a fault.
So Jeff, our engineer, has confirmed to us that we've lost the gear. Actually ends up being 6th gear, which actually at the time when I went into turn 1 seemed pretty bad, but then through the lap, for the rest of the lap at least around Catalonia, not really using 6th gear too much apart from maybe the uphill right-hander in sector 2 and then through the final corner. So in the end, it actually still ends up being a pretty decent lap. I think it may be still even the fastest lap of this entire Saturday for me in the Renault, and it still gets us a very comfortable P7. Well, I say comfortable, it's quite close between P7 down to P9. Very, very close between Felipe Massa and my teammate Nico Hülkenberg. And then you can see quite a sizable gap. So, as in, I've done the best of the rest. I really couldn't have hoped for any more than P7. So, at the end of the day, actually, I can be quite delighted at that qualifying result, really, to be ahead of Massa and Perez and my teammate with one missing gear throughout the lap. Hopefully, that doesn't come back to bite us in the race. It could potentially come during the race, which will be a bit annoying, but we're just going to have to live with it and see how we can do. But let's go to Sunday and see that starting grid.
I, for one, can't wait to get started. And there's another very excited little chap here beside me as well. It's our very own Anthony Davidson. Great to see you again today.
Thanks for that, Crofty. And I'm really anxious to get underway here. We've got all the makings of a great race today. World champions in competitive cars, lots of drivers on form, and I suspect a few strategists on the pit wall looking to try something a bit different and maybe jump their cars up the order.
Well then, after an exciting qualifying session yesterday, let's take a look at how the cars line up. Lewis Hamilton lines up on pole position, and starting alongside in P2 is Sebastian Vettel. Looking down the rest of the grid, we have Bottas, Raikkonen, Max Verstappen and Ricciardo, Renault, Massa, Hülkenberg and Sergio Perez, Sainz, Grosjean, Kevin Magnussen and Ocon, Kvyat, Alonso, Lance Stroll and Stoffel van Dorn, Wehrlein and Marcus Ericsson rounds off the grid. And now it's time to head down to the track.
So just like last summer at the Russian Grand Prix, we're going to kick this race off in overcast conditions, then going to get a little bit sunnier, so thankfully no wet tyres will be needed, and that won't ruin what has been very, very decent dry pace from both us, Renaults, myself and Nico. So it's going to be a two-stop, soft, medium and hard, and we probably will stick with that default strategy this time round compared to Season 1 and just trust our engineer on it. We overfill the car a tad so we can use rich mix once again. So here we go to 5 red lights for the Spanish Grand Prix, round number 5 of Season 2. We're underway as the lights go out, and it's been a pretty piss poor start actually, because you can see on the right hand side the red proximity tower is already there as Felipe Massa jumps us and maybe tries to slipstream Daniel Ricciardo to get into the inside of both the Red Bull cars. We're going to take to the inside line for turn 1 now and move across, and Sergio Perez, I think this is down our inside, so he's overtaken us. We're off wide a little bit on the green AstroTurf, and Perez swings it round to get that place. So a very poor start actually compared to how we have been starting so far in this season, as they go side by side, one of the Ferrari cars with one of the Mercs. I think it was Lewis Hamilton leading the way, so that must be Bottas going side by side with, I still can't tell which Ferrari that is, probably Kimi Raikkonen really, as Raikkonen's AI has usually been performing a little bit better than Vettel's so far in this bog standard career mode save. So now we move on to the end of lap 2, trying to chase after Sergio Perez, but as we go through the final corner, you can see eagle-eye viewers may have noticed as we went through that last corner, we went from 4th to 6th gear. We have actually lost 5th gear already in this race on lap 3. It shouldn't be a permanent loss though. We could potentially get it back. That is something that can happen to the gearbox. You can temporarily lose the gear and then it will come back to you, as it did in qualifying pretty much. Obviously from Saturday to Sunday the gearbox came back to us. We didn't still have a missing 6th gear, so hopefully that issue doesn't go on for too long. But as we move on towards lap 4, you can see opening DRS, rich mix, and just unable to actually catch Perez at this stage. You can see he's had some lightning pace in his straight line. Obviously probably got DRS on the car ahead of him at this point as well, so that's helping him out majorly. But we're going to try our best to push on through the corners and to try and catch him, and eventually towards the end of lap 6 now, so nearly 3 laps later, as we move on to lap 7, we are closing up now finally in sector 3, closed up quite a bit in the chicane here. So here we go, going to open DRS up, and Perez does have DRS off Massa, and so as we tuck into the slipstream here, just not gaining enough, so this may have to be a bit of a lunge into turn 1 here on lap 7. So here we go for it into the brake zone. We're going to go for it down to 3rd gear into turn 1, use the curbing a little bit. Perez opens up this space, to be fair to him, and a little bit of oversteer on the exit, trying to plant the power down in 5th gear. Eventually we do get the grip in the Renault, and we are able to bury our foot on the right pedal, and we're able to get ahead of Perez. You can see very, very close up actually. Perez just about tucks in behind us, and he's got the Haas of Romain Grosjean, I think, closely behind. So this little trio train is going to get maybe a little bit tasty later on in this race if it continues like this. But we can see up ahead, I was catching Felipe Massa, but Massa comes in a little bit early actually, to my liking, on lap 7 there. So we're going to continue on at least for one more lap and see how it goes. But obviously you can see on the top left, most of the AI actually came in on lap 7, but I would have loved to try and get some slipstream off Massa to actually try and overtake him. But just like back in China, frustratingly, I'm just left with maybe potentially having to make a strategic overtake on Massa. I'd always rather prefer to do it on track, if you know what I mean. Just a lot more fun. But we come into the pits anyway for our first pit stop of the afternoon. So this will be onto the set of medium tyres, white wall. And like I mentioned at the very start of the race, unlike season 1, we're not going to try a kind of weird strategy of trying to stretch out the mediums and the soft and maybe avoid the hard tyres. I'm just going to kind of stick to what my engineer's been telling me, to go to the hard tyres eventually around lap 16, I would imagine. You can see as we come out the pits, we come out pretty much with the same gap to Massa, but we actually gain a bit more time on Perez behind us. So at least that's good to see that the overcut effectively kind of worked on Perez, and I guess Massa's undercut kind of half worked, but he didn't really gain that much time on us. And meanwhile, you can see the overcuts work for Grosjean, as Grosjean's jumped Perez there. You can see we kind of swerved the right there a little bit to get quite close up to him, just to kind of let him know that we're there and that we're still contending with him, and he's overtaken Perez in the pit stop. So that's worked out for him very well indeed. But now we move on. We've moved on to lap 12. You can see on the top right, we are setting personal best at the moment, but Massa is actually pulling away from us. So as much as I'm trying as hard as I can to push flat out in this Renault in this second phase of the race, Massa just seems to have too much pace in that Williams car. Kind of like what happened in season 1. Remember, we only actually got Massa in season 1 because he ended up with having a failure towards the end of the race, and I think it would be very bad luck if he was to get a second failure, second time in a row at the Spanish Grand Prix. And as we move later into the race, Grosjean actually fancies himself to try and overtake us. We're 2 laps later now onto lap 14, and he's got DRS obviously and got a lot of overspeed in the Haas. He sends it down the inside. We go around the outside just like Perez did to us. We leave him in the space though, but we're going to try our best to just keep our foot in, and basically he's just not going to have the grip to actually hold that through. The dirty air will obviously kick in through that corner as well. That'll be a very nasty corner to get caught in the plume from the exhaust, and so he just doesn't have the grip to actually hold it through down the inside, whereas I think we were a lot more alongside Perez than Grosjean ever was to us. So now, for now, we're ahead of Grosjean still on the next lap 15, but you can see now Massa is really pulling away from us, and we're struggling a little bit on the tyres. We've only got maybe a lap or 2 to go until our pit stop though. I said lap 16, we're now on the end of lap 15, so literally on this next lap I think we could maybe call it into Jeff to come into the pits, but we're going to have to do some defending now. It's actually lap 17 now, sorry, my bad. It's lap 17, so 1 lap later actually, and Grosjean has overtaken us now with DRS, and he's actually got us even before the braking starts. But oh my god, oh, Grosjean's got a brake failure. Oh, in absolute comedic fashion, just like we've seen too many times in the real life season. Grosjean and brake failures, the most iconic couple ever in 2017, has come through once again. That was a very weird incident. That kind of threw me off as well. I really thought I was ready. I was fully prepared to just tuck in behind Grosjean into turn 1, and then he's had an absolute mare, just went straight on off into the runoff area. So let's look at a replay of that. So lap 17 here. So we're actually going, we're extending our medium stint by 1 or 2 laps here technically now, but Grosjean gets us completely before the braking even starts for him, and then just goes straight on really. And then it looks like he has at least one other car overtaking him, maybe a third car, I'm not too sure. No, it looks like he just comes out back on track just ahead of, I think it's the second Force India. I think Ocon and Perez are quite close together in terms of what they're trying. Remember, obviously the Force Indias tried an amazing and very bold 1-stop in season 1, so I don't know if they're trying that again. Doesn't look like Perez is, maybe Ocon is, because I haven't really actually seen him on track so far. But we come into the pits now for our final pit stop, which will be this set of hard tyres, the orange wall tyres, and going to the end here. So I think we avoided these tyres in season 1. Obviously I could be remembering it completely wrong, but Massa comes in for those hard tyres as well, so we're at least going to match everyone around us, the AI. So pretty decent stop for us, and no dramas on the actual clutch release once again. And we go down the pit exit. Let's see where we come out. So obviously Massa's overtaken us. The Toro Rosso there, I believe, is a bit out of shape and out of the order, and here comes one of the Force Indies. I don't think it's Perez. It is Esteban Ocon with that pink helmet, the more kind of a stronger pink helmet, and so Esteban Ocon has overtaken us. He's on hard tyres already, so that suggests to me that, just like I suggested, he is definitely doing the 1-stop once again in season 2, the wily old fox Ocon. So hopefully we can try and overtake him. Obviously we'll be on fresher hard tyres here. He would have been on these hard tyres if he's trying the 1-stop for, I would say, at least 5 laps. He would have hit around maybe lap 14, 13. So as we get a little bit wayward and sideways through the last corner, we actually do gain enough speed though through that final corner still. Open DRS, getting the slipstream, and once again it may have to be a bold move. Actually, no, to be fair, we're actually getting a lot of speed now compared to what we did on Perez earlier on the race. So here we go, send it down the inside. Ocon puts up a fight just like Perez did, but this time round I'm getting a little bit wide, having to lift off, and now Ocon is able to keep it around the outside. We go side by side, and he's doing a much better job than Sergio ever did to put up a fight here. He's still there there with his nose on side by side with me, because you can see the proximity arrow is red. So I'm constantly having to give him some space here on the outside. We're still side by side as we go down towards the end of Sector 1, beginning Sector 2, trying to go around the outside. He's going to squeeze us out here. We get on the curbing a little bit. It doesn't help traction, so we try a bit of a switch move to the left-hand side, down the inside, the high-speed chicane. It's oh so close between my right front tyre and his left rear tyre. And for now, Ocon has that. We're going to have to stick behind now, open DRS for the second bite of the cherry on the lap, and be patient a little bit. And now we move on to the main straight once again. So second time lucky here. Can we try and get this? This time looks like we're even closer to his rear end. So here we go. Swoop to the right, down the inside, and you can see a car's just coming out. So it's going to be Perez. So we make the move down the inside, but Perez has jumped us indeed then in the pit stops, unfortunately. But we have actually got his teammate now, finally, Ocon. Perez on medium tyres, which is surprising, because was he on mediums in the second stint? I'm pretty sure he was. So I think Perez has managed to pull off some very odd strategy of going to 2 mediums. But as we move on to lap 22, that fact won't matter too much at the moment, because we are closing in on Perez. We've got Rich Schmicks, and you can see DRS wide open, gaining the speed down to turn 1, and this time around hoping for a bit more of an aggressive move into turn 1 and trying to overtake him a bit easier than we did on Ocon just a few moments ago down the inside of turn 3. And it's pretty much almost like a copycat move of the move we made earlier on in the race to Perez, although I probably had to do a bit less of a lunge into turn 1 to make that work. So now we move later into the race, into lap 24 now. Perez is coming back at us, so we're going to have to do some defending now in this race, just like we did against Grosjean. Perez tries to go around the outside to turn 1. It's going to be a bit too easy for us to really defend from him, so he's going to have to try something a little bit different there if he wants to overtake us. But as we move one lap later towards lap 26 now, we're lapping Carlos Sainz there. He's in P20, so how things have changed, really, how fortunes changed for the Toro Rosso team. I'm now in the Renault, and we're lapping the Toro Rosso. I don't know if Sainz had an issue, but remember there was a Toro Rosso kind of on one of the replay camera shots, seemingly very much down the order earlier on in the episode. So yeah, the Toro Rosso car really not working well here around Spain. Obviously, I mentioned earlier, it is a chassis kind of aerodynamic circuit first and foremost, so Toro Rosso struggling somewhat compared to both us Renaults who are working well. Well, I guess one of us Renaults, Hulkenberg, hasn't really been in this race too much, and I am struggling to even just keep P8 at the moment. So in stark contrast to qualifying, this race has been a bit more of a struggle than I had hoped. And once again, you can see on lap 27, defending from Perez. This time around, he tries it down the inside, and to be fair to him, he has a bit of a second bite and a bit of a look into turn 3, but in the end we are able to keep it ahead for P8, and it looks like that may be the maximum position we're trying to get in this race so far. As we move on now, lap 28, you can see just about keeping it on the road there, going very wide on the top of the hill in towards the end of sector 2, and behind us it's side-by-side action between Grosjean and Perez there, as Grosjean tries to overtake this yellow flag. So I think the Haas is round. I think Perez made some contact with Grosjean there. So Perez, we saw from season 1, was very, very aggressive with us sometimes, a bit too aggressive in some cases, brake checking us. I wonder if he's come back with a vengeance in season 2 to spin around Romain Grosjean there, who tried his hardest to go down the inside, I think it was, into sector 3. So now Perez chases after us, even after some contact with the Haas. He's still there within a second of us to have DRS. But let's take a look at the replay camera and see what went on there. So Grosjean got a fabulous exit off the hill, gets DRS open, then goes down the inside like I mentioned, and he's going to go side by side now. Was there any kind of squeezing out, I wonder? They're both on medium tyres, and so as we go through, this is where we look behind, and okay, that's very, very odd incident. Perez, that wasn't Perez's fault at all. Okay, my bad. Sorry, Sergio, you didn't, okay. I'm very confused by that. That's Grosjean just losing the rear end. Okay, looks like Grosjean has a second problem this afternoon. The brake failure, and then seemingly just losing all kind of concentration on the throttle. And I don't think any contact, at least from that angle, didn't look like there was any contact made there with Perez. So Perez kind of cleared of any wrongdoing there, really, on the replay camera. Grosjean just unable to keep the throttle management going in that Haas. So we go side by side once again with Sergio Perez. This is now on the last lap of the Grand Prix. He's done so much better, actually, to try and go around the outside. And he's actually ahead of us now as we go into the end of Sector 1. We have to outbrake him and try and force him out a little bit, and we do successfully do that. So just about, I think, we'll be able to keep this P8 for the end of the Grand Prix. We've got only just 2/3 of the lap left to go. Perez definitely did try his hardest on the last lap of the Grand Prix, to mount one last challenge there on his very unorthodox 2-stop with 2 sets of medium tyres, which I'm still very confused at how he's actually managed to pull that off with a pretty decent pace. But we come across the line then, and it'll be P8 there, so a very hard-fought P8. Unfortunate race, really, because I thought from qualifying it was looking so good for both of us. Myself and Nico had some really decent pace. I got P7 despite having one less gear on the flying lap, and just during the race, just unable to keep the consistent pace, really. And the likes of, the Mercedes-powered cars, but, Massa able to pull away from us. Perez almost gave us a bit of trouble. So, although all the chat about it being a chassis and aero circuit, because we are running so much higher wings to actually gain time in the corners there, it looks like we're kind of susceptible to just straight line speed compared to, obviously, most of the AI will probably run near enough default. We know from David Greco talking to him nearer to the race, nearer to the game launch, that the AI will sometimes go one lower or one higher wings, but generally they're not going to go too extreme, whereas I think I was running 9.9, I think, around here at Spain, so I think that may be a cause for that. But Lewis Hamilton comes home for the win at the Spanish Grand Prix from Sebastian Vettel and Kimi Raikkonen there. But you can see it looks like Esteban Ocon was the only driver in the top 13 at least that did actually manage that one stop and make it work, and once again he gets himself at least 1 points paying position there, and the top guys all doing 3 stops there to take the win, Hamilton and Vettel. For the Drivers' Championship, this race means that Hulkenberg actually moves lower than Ricciardo. Ricciardo managed to split both of us Renault cars, and unfortunately, after what was such a great points paying position at Russia with such a high finish there at the last episode, we now move back down below Red Bull Racing, and you can see we're getting quite a bit on the rest of the midfield, so we're kind of caught in this very odd and very frustrating actually situation at the moment, where I can just see this happening, that over the course of the season I think we'll be comfortably still ahead of Force India, the likes of Haas, and maybe if Williams and Toro Rosso want to pick up their kind of pieces and actually start doing some stuff in this season. But Red Bull just have too much pace in the tank that even when they do have the kind of off races like Russia, they're still going to easily come back in the next round, probably just like they have done in this episode, to get back past this. So we're going to have to really hope for some big upgrades, or just a lot of reliability issues for Red Bull Racing. Obviously this time around, this season compared to season 1, they've actually been better in terms of reliability. We saw already at this point of the season last time, I think Verstappen and Ricciardo equally both started at the back 3 different times, whereas this season hasn't been the case. So yeah, it's going to be a bit of an uphill struggle to really break in this season, but I guess this one's the building and founding season, if you will. But anyway, as I did mention quite some time at the very start of the episode, some time ago, we were going to get enough points maybe to make this upgrade finally happen. So there we go. We do purchase the first internal combustion engine durability upgrade. So quite surprisingly to me even as well, we've done 3 durability upgrades so far this season and 0 performance upgrades. We're yet to get it. Obviously, it'll come next time out at the Monaco Grand Prix. So surprising myself there, but we'll have 2 upgrades then for next episode. The durability on the internal combustion engine and that first powertrain upgrade that we're going to do, and it's not going to be the AI's work. So guys, if you have enjoyed that episode, smash that like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. If you're new around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I'll see you guys next time. Hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.